So uh, I just want to summarize something about what Saket mentioned about. When we say big data, um, what are the things we want to pay attention to? Um, Space, data access. So the data is so huge that whatever we want to do with it, we may not have too much space. And data also may not always be visible completely, all the data. Sometimes it may be, sometimes it may not be. And we will realize that in our standard algorithms, in the worst case, many of this cannot be doable. So we will get used to randomization and approximation. Okay? So these are some of the issues we'll worry about. But in this lecture, I am going to assume that I'm going to worry only about this. These are not issues. So we will actually want to solve exactly, no approximation, no randomization, and data is completely visible to you in my input array. Okay. So in some sense, there are two purposes with this. One is to, bring in restrictions gradually, because Saket talked about streaming, which is too much of a restriction. Right now, I'm going to assume that as in the classical data, we have all the data available to us in a random access file. One problem is the space. And we want to solve it exactly, and we want to solve it deterministically without randomization. The point is, again, two purposes. One is to bring in these constraints gradually over a period of next couple of days. And two, this will also, you will see, will be a revision of some of the things you have learned in your algorithms and data structures courses. So through this process, we are going to do some quick revision on some of the things you've learned. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is this in-place algorithms. Okay, so what that means, these are all some of the classical historical development of how space became important. Okay, which may or may not be necessarily the modern thing, but through this process we will learn some cute techniques along the way. So that's the whole purpose. So in-place algorithm means we want to talk about algorithms apart from my input space. It only takes some constant number of variables or registers or whatever you are used to. Okay, so let's go ahead and revise some of our algorithms we have learned in algorithms course. Does anyone know in-place sorting? Can you sort n input without using not more than constant number of extra space? Anybody wants to answer? Unmute and say, or put it in the chat. The question clear? And am I audible? Can you see the slides? Because I can't see you guys. Okay, in place quick sort, one person says. Okay, does really quick sort, does it really take only constant number of extra space? Merge sort, wow, okay, really? You can bubble sort, insertion sort. You can do all of this with only constant number of extra variables.
Yeah, so in bubble sort, we swap elements by comparing them. Though the number of comparisons is high, the space used is the extra space used is not more than constant.
Very good. So, but the time is?
Yeah, that is in the worst case the n square at bad.
N square. Okay, good. I mean, I only asked for good space to start with. What about somebody said merge sort? Can you really do merge sort with small amount of extra space? How do you merge two lists? Merge sort is not in place, somebody says. Okay. Imagine, if I want to merge two lists, you typically pick another extra array cell and then look at the elements and copy one by one, compare and do it. So it could be order and space. What about quicksort? This quicksort, how much space does it take? How much space does it take? Is it an in-place sorting algorithm? First of all, how much time does it take? Quicksort in the worst case?
O of n
N
square.
square.
O of n square, right? First of all.
Yeah.
What about space? How do you do quicksort? You pick a pivot, right? And then you're going to compare everybody with that pivot, and then you're going to recurse on both sides. Okay. So how will you do recursion? What sort of space do you need for the recursion?
Stacks. Oh,
Stack space, yes, very good. How large a stack size you may need?
order of n.
Okay, why? How? Stack space depends on recursive calls. Yes, depends on how many recursive calls you do. So in the worst case, it could be order of n, right? So space, really,
Yeah.
quicksort is not. Bubble sort, yes, is n square, but constant space. Merge sort may require extra space. Do you know a sorting algorithm that takes n log n time, but only constant extra space?
Heap sort.
Yeah,
Heap sort.
heap sort, okay. Does it really take only constant number of extra space? Yes, heap sort takes only constant amount of extra space because you can use your heap, implement it in an array. The beauty of heap is that you don't need anything more than just an array. You can do all the operations, you can do delete min, you can do insert, everything within the array just by running some variable, some one or two variables. So heap sort is one of the classical in-place sorting algorithm, an algorithm that takes only constant extra space, and this is a 1964 algorithm. Okay, what about in-place merging? So people said, merging actually takes order n extra space, but there are very cute in-place merging algorithms known. Again, this is as old as 1964 in Cronrod. And then this was improved a lot by Huang and Langston in 1988. This is actually Huang's PhD thesis in 1988 was about doing merging and merge sort in place. Okay. Now this is going to be an overview initially, and then we will actually get on to solving some problems. So I'm throwing these names. If anybody is interested, please look up and you can find interesting. Some of these algorithms are 1964, so they are not very hard at all. So you should be able to check them out. Okay. What about finding median? How fast? Suppose I don't care about space. How fast can you find median from a list of n numbers?
N log n.
N log n. Okay. How do you do?
We can sort and just take n by 2.
Okay. Doing
Indexing
sort
n
and
by
take
2.
the middle element. Yes.
Yes.
Do you know a better algorithm?
No, sir.
Median of medians. Yes. How much time does that take? Yes, this is one of the classical divide and conquer algorithm. This is there in all your algorithms books, by the way. It's not, I know, Bloom, Floyd, Pratt, reverse Tarjan algorithm using median of medians and very clever use of divide and conquer. You can actually find median in linear time without worrying about space. But again, in 1980s, people actually looked about finding median using constant extra space. This was actually Tony Lai's PhD thesis in 1988. Also, Svante Carlson had some part of it in his thesis on trying to do this median finding in linear with constant extra space. These are 1960s, 70s, 80s, before people really talked about big data and so on and so forth. Okay, so there's been a lot of work in computational geometry. I think there are quite a few people who are actually experts in geometry in the audience. And you can also ask this question, which of these geometric problems can you actually do with only constant number of extra variables? And there's been beautiful work on these topics. In-place graph algorithms, for example. So here you need to define your model carefully, because when we talk about sorting, merging, selection, your input is a sequence of numbers or something, some set from a total order. But when you talk about in-place graph algorithms, so again, when we talk about in-place sorting, merging, you are free to move elements within your input array. But in a graph algorithm, if you are given an adjacency array or adjacency matrix, you can't move things within freely, right? Why not? Suppose I have an adjacency list and in the process of my algorithm, I move from third list to fifth list, seventh list, and so on and so forth. What happens?
You altered the graph.
Graph changes. So you even lose the graph. So you have to be very careful about how you even define in-place graph algorithm. And surprisingly, okay, so one way to do it is you move elements within a neighbor list of a vertex. Don't do any other arbitrary moves, but just move within neighbor list of a vertex. And surprisingly, people have not looked at in-place graph algorithms until 2018. This is an European symposium on algorithms, and there is a recent paper in this year's EVOCA conference where in this model, so you are given an adjacency matrix, adjacency list. All you are allowed to do is to move elements within your input. You can actually do BFS, DFS using only constant number of extra cells. Okay, so these are equivalent, constant number of extra memory or log n bits of extra space, because a memory cell or one index is just storing some number, so it takes log n bits. And so with about order log n bits of extra space, you can do BFS and DFS. Normally, implementing BFS and DFS, you need a huge queue, right? So your normal standard thing which you learn in your CLRs would have a queue. You'll have a color array, right? You color a node gray, black, white, or something like that. So this itself is going to take you some n bits. And your queue can have some up to n numbers. So this may take n log n bits. So what these algorithms are doing is that we don't need any of this extra space if you're allowed to move within your adjacency list to keep track of what nodes you visited, keep track of colors and all that. And they can, so ESA 2018 paper had like n square, n cube kind of algorithm, but this recently it's been improved to order m plus n, as good as what you need extra space. Okay. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about these things, but if anybody is interested, let me know. I can point out. And these are very recent work on in-place graph algorithms. Okay, so much on in-place algorithms. These are algorithms that take just the input and some constant number of extra memory variables to do your problem. And every problem you've seen in your algorithms code, you can revisit them by looking at which of them can I actually do with constant number of extra space. Okay. As I said, heap sort or merging can be done, selection can be done. You can actually do even graph algorithms in this model. Okay, so next what I want to switch to, which is where I will actually do some fun games, is this notion of data structures, implicit data structure again. So you can ask the same kind of questions in implicit data structure, where my data structure is supposed to have only an array, nothing else. Okay, it just has an array of your input and some constant number of pointers here or there, or store some numbers if you want, but this is a constant number independent of the input. What can you do is the question. Okay, so again, do you know an implicit data structure? Where you just have an array, all you're allowed to do is to permute the input. And of course, what is a data structure problem? You want to organize your data to support some queries, some updates, some inserts, whatever, right? So you have your input and a bunch of queries associated with it. You want to support them efficiently. Now, have you seen, can you give me an example of an implicit data structure?
Array?
Heap.
Array is an implicit data
Yeah.
structure.
Sir, binary tree as a list.
Binary tree as a list? What do you mean by as a list? I don't understand.
Like
So stacks.
in increasing order of depth. So like root, first left child,
Okay, so let
first
me
right
write down.
child.
So somebody said heap, somebody said stack, somebody said
Queue.
binary tree,
Hello.
Queues.
order, something. I don't understand so much, but see, the problem with binary tree is these pointers are represent something. You have to store them somewhere, right? When you store a tree, you are storing something, and the pointers have to tell you, this is the left child, right child, or something. How will you store that information? It's not just enough to store in an array. Of course, a complete binary tree, you can store it in the level by level, and that's exactly what heap does. So heap is a complete binary tree. So heap is a complete binary tree where elements have a particular kind of an order. And what operations can you perform here in a heap in how much time? Anybody?
Max heapify.
Yeah.
Max heapify, sir.
Can you put it in chat? I can't really hear you very well.
What was your question, sir?
In a heap, what are the operations or the queries you can support efficiently?
So you can do up heap, down heap, and log in time.
Removal and addition. Okay. So you can do insert, you can do delete. What else?
There's
Extract max. Extracting minimum or maximum value.
In how much time you can do all of this?
Sir, if it is a max heap, then we can extract the maximum value in log n time.
Yes. And do you all understand that actually heap doesn't need all these pointers? You can just store them in this array, nothing else.
Yes, sir.
You may need to store your n, that's all. So in an array, you can just do insert, delete, min or max, extract max, all this in log n time. Can you search for an element in heap?
No, sir. Yeah, and I mean, it's not one of the things that heap is supposed to do, though.
You can do it in ON, I mean.
Yeah, of course you can do, but not in log n, right? You can do in ON, but not log n. So if you cannot search, how do you delete an element? Can you actually delete in logarithmic time? Suppose I give an array and say, okay, delete value 5. First of all, you have to search where it is, no?
Deletion takes
So you can keep a dictionary to store the position in the heap.
Let's finish heap first. Yeah. So can you actually say, okay, can you So you can't search efficiently, but you can do delete min or delete max depending on whether you have a min heap or max heap. You can do insertions in logarithmic time. But you can't, okay, can you do a heapify operation? Heapify is sort of pre-processing of my input. Okay, well, I won't worry about it for now. So you're allowed a lot of time to set it up, and then you have to support the queries first. Okay, so the
Sir,
heap is a, yeah.
sir, you talked about deleting an element from heap, right?
Yes, I did not say, somebody told me.
Okay, sir. Sorry, sir.
I'm not still sure. Somebody told me you can do delete, and I'm confused. Can you actually delete an element from a heap in logarithmic time?
No, sir.
Not actually.
No, sir, we don't perform that operation.
We'll take order
You
in
don't, is it? Okay. Okay, think about it. What kind of delete? At least you can do insert and delete max in logarithmic time. Okay, but you cannot do search. Now, can you really not do search better than linear time at all? Okay, one of the problems in the tutorial asks you to prove that you cannot actually delete an arbitrary element. Sorry, you cannot search. You cannot search for an arbitrary element in linear time. Okay, I don't know how you would prove it. I don't know whether you have seen such proofs, but I'm just curious to see how you would argue this. Okay, there's no easy way, no sublinear way to search for a heap, search in a heap. Yeah, you can't do better than linear time. Okay, any other data structure, implicit data structure? People said stack. Yeah, sure. What else? Because when you say data structure, you also have to come with the query it's going to support efficiently, right? So suppose I say I want you to support search operation efficiently. Given an arbitrary element, I want to know whether it is there or not in the structure. So can you think of an implicit data structure for it? Just the search operation.
Sir, AVL tree.
Yeah.
AVL tree.
AVL tree, is it an implicit data structure? I mean, AVL tree has all kinds of pointer, space, plus, minus, all kinds. All I am allowed to do is store an array.
Hash table, you have a hash function which hashes the elements to different elements in the array.
Okay.
Membership.
How much
Hashing
time
with
does it
linear
take?
probing.
Sorry?
So hashing with linear probing, it's in.
Hashing with linear probing, can you manage without extra space?
Yes, sir. I think it. Okay, without extra space.
Suppose I'm happy with the log n time search.
BST?
array.
BST is what somebody told me, and I said, how will you manage it in an array?
So if we have data stored, like sorted data stored in an array only, we can
Yeah,
sort.
come on, guys, where are you? You just keep a sorted array. Sorted array,
Yeah.
right? You can search in order log n time. You can do binary search. Why do we have to go to BST and AVL tree and hash table and all that? Why do we have to, by the way? I mean, why did you even think of AVL tree?
I was just thinking because
Sorry?
I was just thinking that you asked for a data structure itself that would support.
Yeah, I asked for a data structure, and a sorted array is a data structure.
No, it is a data structure, but you're doing some. I was not thinking an array
Okay,
by.
No.
It was not natural.
I'm asking a genuine question. What is the feature of AVL tree?
It is the same as having a sorted.
Is it the same as sorted array?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Why do we spend 15 pages of AVL tree in your algorithms course if it is the same as sorted array?
I mean,
What is special
you
about
cannot-
AVL tree? What can you do better?
I mean, every new entry automatically gets like it balances the tree and it gets automatically in the
These
right.
are jargons to me. What can you do better in an AVL tree which you cannot do in a sorted array?
Insertion.
That's it. Come
That's
on,
the same.
insertion, right? So if I ask for a data structure, for immediately you should ask me what is the data I'm organizing, A, B, what are the queries you are going to ask. If I tell you all I'm going to ask you, the query is search, you don't need AVL tree. But if I also tell you I will insert element, I'm going to delete elements, then you need to worry about sorted array is not good enough. Okay. Okay, let's do one more fun example. Suppose the operations I'm going to ask is insert and max. Okay, these are the only two queries. What data structure would you use to store this, to answer this?
Heap.
So there are some people in the audience who know this answer, so I will ask them to keep quiet. Okay, so Savit Gupta says heap. Okay, so if I use a heap, max heap, how much time does insert takes?
Sir, but can't we just store array with
Sorry?
one extra? Can't we just store arrays like simple array with one extra max still? One extra. Oh, we want
Okay,
to
let me complete this. Somebody told heap. So, okay, so Savit Gupta says it takes log n time to insert, and max would be
Order one.
order one, right? Okay, sorry. But now, can you improve it and some, yeah, who was suggesting some other idea?
So I thought we could just maintain an
An array
array with
and what?
max element stored in the first
Max element.
Extra variable that will store the max variable.
Yeah.
The
Not
max.
just, so I have one value. So this I will store max here.
Yeah.
Okay.
You keep on updating the max as you keep on
Okay,
inserting.
so this is my data structure. Somebody was complaining that an array is not a data structure. Now I'm going to tell you this is my data structure. I don't need heap. I don't need anything. If these are the operations I'm going to support, I will just store max, nothing else. Now, whenever I want to insert an element, what do you do? What do you do? You compare x with the max. If this element is larger, I'll replace max with x. Otherwise, I'll keep max and say x, I don't need you. Move on. Whenever somebody asks for max, in fact, both the operations I can answer in constant time with constant space. Okay. So what is the lesson here? I'm telling you, the lesson is that the moment I ask for a data structure, you should tell me, you should ask what are the queries you are going to support. You're going to ask. Depending on that, I will store it. Now, suppose I also want to delete an element. Then this data structure is not good enough because once I delete an element, max value changes, all hell breaks loose, right? So we need to do something else. Okay, good. So we have seen some, by the way, these are all implicit data structures. All you have is just an array and you're allowing to permutation. That's all. Okay. So we move on. So I said heap, you can support insert and delete min or insert and delete max depending on the heap. And so in other words, in a heap, you basically maintain this array ai less than or equal to a to I, comma a to I plus 1 for every index. That's all. This is sort of the permutation. Now, what about dictionary operations? Suppose I want to support insert, search, and delete. All you're allowed is an array, nothing else. You're allowed some constant number of extra space if you want, but you just allow an array where you're allowed to permute your operation numbers the way you want. Okay. So here again, a sorted array is the solution. Search is log n, but insert or delete take omega n time. So here is my question, which is what we'll spend the next 5 minutes talking about. Is there an intermediate solution? Suppose I'm willing to forego log n time, but I don't want anybody to take order n time. Okay, so is there a solution where I want to do insert, search, and delete sublinear time? Okay, sublinear is good enough for me. How will you organize your data? How will you permute? What sort of permutation would you keep? Any thoughts? Again, start from scratch. Okay? Don't resort to something, some buzzword you learned like range search tree. No, all I'm saying is just an array. And here you are allowed to organize your data the way you like it. How will you organize it so that these operations actually take sublinear time? Okay, there are no thoughts. Let me propose a solution. Okay. Before that, here are some fun things I wanted to tell you. Okay, this is sort of an overview. So this was a question people thought in 80s. If you look at an unsorted array, how many permutations of the input are you allowing? Well, you're allowing all possible permutations, n factorial permutations. And so searching is hard. If there are lots of permutations, maybe searching is hard. If you have a sorted array, there is only one permutation of the input you're allowing. So searching is easy. So people ask, is there a correlation? And this was proved. Yes, there is a correlation in about 1985. Alts and Melhon showed. These are actually very nice, simple proofs. So really somebody is interested, you can look up or I can tell you the references. It says that if you have an array which allows p permutations, then the time you need to search in such an array is omega p power 1 by n, which means if p is n factorial, then this tells you n factorial power 1 by n, which is roughly omega n. So maybe unsorted array, actually, that is the reason you're spending order n to search. Okay, but all lower bounds come with some caveat, right? Because I'm sure you all learned the lower bound that any sorting algorithm requires omega n log n time, right? Yes? Anybody who has seen this theorem that any sorting algorithm, well, not quite the way I said it, maybe I'll need your help to fix this statement. Any comparison based sorting algorithm, exactly, right, requires omega n log n time. But do you also know a linear time algorithm to sort? Counting sort, right? Exactly. So so lower bounds come with some caveat. So the caveat for this theorem is that if p permutations are allowed, you need p power 1 by n time to search if every comparison involves the element being searched for. So if I am querying an element x, and if the only comparison allowed is x and some element in the array, then this lower bound is p power 1 by n. Okay, but without this condition, the theorem is false. And why? Your tutorial has an example of an array which allows lots of permutations, but still you can search in log n time. Okay, so that's a problem in the tutorial sheet. Okay, any questions? Another kind of thing people were wondering in again 80s is that maybe if you spend a lot of time pre-processing it, search is easier. Okay, so for example, sorting takes a lot of time in log n. Then if you spend that time in your pre-processing, then you can search in logarithmic time. But if unsorted array, you don't even pre-process, so it doesn't take too much time. So search is too much time. Search takes too much time. So is there a correlation? Then again, yes. There was a theorem which was shown by Borodin, Gibbs, Lynch, Yao. These are some really big people. 1981, that P is the pre-processing time and S is the search time. Then they proved that Pn plus n log Sn is omega n log. Okay, this is again a fun theorem, very simple. It's like these are some papers in IPL or something, 2-page proof, less than that. So a corollary of that is if insertion time is constant, then you can actually pre-process in linear time because you just keep inserting all your n elements and that's your pre-processing time, which means that n log Sn must be omega n log n. So Sn must be omega n. Okay. So these are some fun results I thought I'll just throw at you. Now let's come back to the problem we want, which is yeah, so this is the question I want to address. I want you to think about, is there an intermediate solution? All I want is you're allowed to take your array, think of some permutation in which you organize your input so that now I want search, insert, delete to take sublinear time. For now, my goal is very minimal. I want sublinear time. If anybody has a solution, let me know before I throw you some solutions. Here is the solution. What do I do? So there is one aspect which I am ignoring, which is the pre-processing time. Right? Any data structure, you need to, given your input, you need to build it up. Okay, let's ignore that for now. You can also think about them and optimize it. For now, I'm just pre-processing. So that means, so what is my solution? All I'm saying is you take your input and divide it into blocks of size root n, and each of this is sorted. And each is of size root n. And tell me how much time does it take to search in this list? I give a query, how much time will it take to search? Anybody? Some query X comes, I want to know whether X is here. How much time does it take to? Very good. Square root of n log n. Because all you have to do is to do a binary search here, binary search here, binary search here, binary search here. Square root of n log n. Remember, my goal was to get everything in sublinear time. Okay. How much time does it take to insert an element? So I have searched and somehow I found that an element is not there. What do I do? How much time does it take to insert?
When we add an element, are we also changing the value of n, or are we assuming that we know n from the start?
Excellent point. I will address that later. It is coming in the next bullet points. Ignore that for now.
Okay, then we can just add the element to the last bucket, assuming that the last bucket had some space.
Yeah.
The last root n quadrant, whatever.
Exactly, right?
And then we could do it in root n.
All you are doing is I add them anywhere, so I add it here, but this is sorted. So I have to do a binary search, push it somewhere, and move these things and all that. So that's order root n. Similarly, if you want to delete an element, well, I search for it, and suppose the element was here, I delete it, maybe move somebody from the last bucket, move it here, do a binary search, insert it, all that. This is just size root n, so this is order root n. Right? So here is, all I've used is an array, nothing else, some pointers maybe, or you remember n, that's all. So I can do insert, search, and delete. This is very cute. implicit data structure, only an array, no pointers, no tree, no extra space, where I can do insert, search, and delete in sublinear time. The only thing I have to address is somebody asked this very nice question. N changes when you delete or insert. How do you deal with these root n size blocks, right? There's a very cute solution to that. Okay, so search takes root n log n, insert and delete takes root n after finding the element's position. Now, there's another question. What if n is not a square, right? Because what do you mean by root n? Root n may not even be an integer. And another point is that with insertions and deletions, n changes. What happens to block sizes? Here is a very simple, nice solution. What we do is, we are not going to have block sizes. So we will have multiple blocks. So first block has only one element. Next block has two elements. Next block has three elements. Next block has four elements, and so on, except the last block would be sort of open-ended, whatever is the remaining. Okay. So how many blocks will there be? So ith block contains I elements, except the last block. So how many blocks will there be? Well, if there are k blocks, what do I know? Summation k is greater than or equal to, or it's roughly n, right? Yeah, exactly. So summation k is like k square, so k square is n, so k is square root of n. So I will have square root of n blocks, about square root of 2n exactly. That's the number of blocks I will have. So it is more or less like this solution. Yeah, it's more or less like this solution. Block sizes are at most order square root of n, and now the array grows nicely organically at the end. Okay, and so this is a simple trick, and this also deals with the case when n is not a square and all that. So now again, search, insertion, deletion, all of this take order n log root n log n time. So this is again, where the block is starting, because if you are in index j, you know which block you are in. Okay, so it's a very nice, cute, implicit data structure where you can do insert, search, delete in sublinear time. Okay, so these are again some fun puzzles to. Okay, here is another structure. It's called biparental heap. So what you do is you think of a matrix like this, two-dimensional array. And your elements are in increasing order here and increasing order here. And you can actually store it in a one-dimensional array by reading diagonal by diagonal. So again, your first block will have the first element, and then these two elements belong to the second block, and then the third diagonal will have the third block, and so on and so forth. It's very similar to what I had. The only difference now is that these rows are in increasing order and columns are in increasing order. So one way to think about it is sort of look at it in your 45-degree, rotate this. I mean, I wish I had a picture of this. Rotate this by 45 degrees, then you'll have something like yeah, I don't want to even try this, but this is actually in the literature called biparental heap. In some sense, every node. So if you think of this guy, these are the two parents for this node, and both of them, sorry, no, not this. These are the two parents, and both of them are smaller than this. So this is because the columns are in increasing order. This is smaller. Because the rows are in increasing order. This is smaller. So if you take a node here, it will have these two are parents. So every node has two parents, and it is satisfying something like a heap order where the parent value is smaller than its value, both the parents' value. So this is called a biparental heap. One way to think of it as you have a matrix, rows in increasing order, columns in increasing order, but when you convert it into a single dimensional array, read it in a diagonal by diagonal way, and what you have is this array. And it's an exercise for you to, it's in the tutorial exercise, try and show that in such a structure, you can actually do search, insert, delete in square root of n time. So you don't even need that extra log n time. You can do it in order root n time. Okay, so that's an exercise for the tutorials. It's there in your tutorial sheet. And here is again another interesting lower bound. So this whole idea of implicit data structures were discovered in Hendra Suvanda's PhD thesis in 1975. And they discovered all these data structures, and they also showed a lower bound with some caveat. The caveat is that if the elements of a given array satisfy a fixed partial order, then insert or search must take at least square root of n time. So what does that mean? So remember, sorted order, you can write it like this: partial order for every I. Okay? Let's say all elements are distinct, so let's not even put this. A heap order would be AI is less than A2I and A2I plus 1. And what they showed is if an implicit data structure is an array with this kind of a partial order on the indices, then at least one of the locations, one of the operations must take omega root n. So in some sense, this biparental heap is an optimal data structure. But again, very soon they themselves came up with a structure which doesn't follow a partial order. Okay, so I'm almost, I'll take another 5 minutes and wrap it up. So they came up with this very clever thing called a rotated list, which is basically a cyclic shift of a sorted array. So think of it as like which means the array starting from here is a sorted order. Somewhere it starts somewhere, the smallest is somewhere, and then you can actually do the whole thing is sorted. So it is essentially a sorted array with some shift. Okay, now it's very easy to see. It's there in the exercise that searching for an element and finding min or max can be done in log n time in a rotated, very simple exercise. And observe that all these data structures are implicit data structures, just an array. All we are playing around is with the permutation of the elements. Now here is another data structure. You have a block of rotated lists where ith block has I elements. Okay, so here is, let me define this rotated list. So it's very similar to the structure we had earlier. First block has 1 element, next block is 2 elements, next block is 3 elements, and so on. With additional property, each is a rotated list. Okay, each is a rotated list, and ith block value is less than I plus first block value. Now that's the structure. Now can you tell me how much time does it take to search for an element? So is the structure clear? There any questions? Just say -1. Yeah.
So what do you mean by block value?
So a block is defined in this fashion. The first block, I'm just physically defining a block.
Okay.
In my array, the first block is in the first location. Second block is in the next 2 locations. Third block is in the next 3 locations. That's all. It's just an arbitrary division like this. So my values would be like this: 3, 7, and 9. So these two, it's a rotated list because smallest here, and this would be like 11, 14, 15. Okay, so this is a rotated list. all elements here are greater than all elements here, which are greater than this, and so on and so forth. This is how a block of rotated list. How much time does it take to search for an element? So I have a query X that's coming in. I want to know whether X is in the array or not.
Sir, I have a query. So a rotated list, it says there is no partial order inside, but
Yeah,
then
okay.
there is
no
one element.
Okay, very good question. I said, I mentioned rotated list as a sort of a counter example to the lower bound. The point is, beforehand, I cannot tell you that AI is less than something, 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 because the smallest can be anywhere.
Yeah, but then
there is order. I'm not
that's
saying
the total order, right?
Yeah, there is sorted order. It is sorted, but unlike heap or sorted order, just by looking at the indices, I can't tell you which is smaller, which is bigger. Mainly because the smallest element can be anywhere.
Yeah, but then you have elements which can be compared. It's not that your point is that any pair of elements cannot be compared, but then there exists some pairs which can be compared, which is what a partial order is.
No, I'm not talking about compared or anything. All I'm saying is this lower bound was shown with an assumption that the moment I tell you the permutation, somehow I can specify this order. Hey, if you want to know a fifth location in a heap, it will always be less than 10th and 11th location. In a heap, I can say that. But in a rotated list, I cannot say the third element will be less than the fourth element, for example. Because maybe third element has the largest element. Of course, we are working with totally ordered elements and we are doing comparisons, so we need to be able to compare. That's not the problem.
Okay.
If you don't understand, think about it. We can discuss it. I don't want to digress too much about it. Let's just look at it as a fun structure. All I'm saying is, here is my, number of blocks times log n is somebody's solution for searching. Remember, I also told you that ith block value is less than ith plus first block values. So all elements here are less than all elements here. Right? I guess Karanya and Janvi, Karanya says number of blocks times log n. Number of blocks is root n. And so she's saying root n times log n. Okay, Rakshit is saying log square n. Why log square n? Can you explain why log square n?
So, sir, I think
probably
we can
the reason I thought it was log n the whole square because since it's a circular, so I think rotating list. So it's basically like a sorted array, and you can search in it also in log n, and you have n blocks. You'll be having a root n number of blocks. So you apply, and we also have a condition that ith block is less than I plus 1th block. So you can apply by BST to find the correct block. So that will be log of root n. So that will be 1/2 log n, and then you have to search for the element in the particular block, and that again you can do another BST that would take.
Your algorithm is perfectly correct, but not your running time.
There are k elements in the kth block, right? So that
your algorithm is perfectly
correct.
What you said is do binary search overall. Maybe pick the first element.
I forgot that. So it would be yes, I understand.
So do binary search by pick maybe some arbitrary element of each block. Doesn't matter because I know they are sorted.
Yes, I get it.
Tells you that maybe 1 or 2 blocks where you have to go inside and search.
And I
each
get
such
it.
search takes only log n. So it will be log n plus log n, not log n times log n.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. So correct.
Okay, so search actually takes order log n, and insert delete again takes root n log n, because there are root n blocks and you may have to search in each one of them. Okay, so I'm close to lunchtime, so let me wrap up in 5 minutes and say what I'm talking about. So what is the game here? You're just given an array. How do you organize it so that you can support these queries? This is a fun notion of implicit data structures. What is that got to do with big data? Well, space we're trying to minimize, okay? And all these pointers, all of this take a lot of extra space, which we want to minimize. And this is independently, it's a theoretical fun question. Anyway, so let me just cut the short story short and tell you, there has been a lot of work on this, on implicit data dictionary problem, right? So you want an array and you want to support these queries. And in 80s, people thought log square n is the best you can do for all these operations. But this was all beaten. In 2006, there is a clever structure, a very complicated structure, where just using one array with clever permutations, you can search or insert delete in logarithmic time. It's a very impressive result, because this tells you that you don't need all these big pointers if you really want to support the dictionary operations. Okay. Another data structure problem which has been studied in the implicit world is the following. Suppose I want to organize a multi-key table, say under name and phone number, so that I can search under any key first. So think of it like I have a two-dimensional array. One has names and other has phone numbers. And if I give you a name, I should be able to find the phone number fast. If I give you a phone number, I should be able to find the name fast. Okay. So this is another problem. Again, you can store two different indices, one sorted under name, one sorted under phone number. That is twice the more than the space needed. Can actually store it in one array with some interesting permutation. And again, okay, I have some partial solutions. I don't want to get into it. But again, these use some very nice combinatorial theorems, has some lower bounds, and the lower bounds have been beaten. And the answer is here again in 1991. It was a very complicated structure where it says there is a way to organize the list so that searching under any key can be achieved in log n time with no extra space, just an array taking advantage of the permutations. Okay, so this is the story of implicit data structures. We talked about in-place algorithms that use constant extra space. We talked about implicit data structures, where data structures that use only constant extra space other than the array. There have been implicit data structures in computational geometry. There is another variation of space-efficient data structures which are called. So I use some information theoretic optimal space plus some little. Maybe I might talk about it in the next lecture. If there is time, I'll see. So I will skip all of that. Yes, I'll get to this tomorrow. Okay, so what's the plan for tomorrow? Well, at least what I'm going to talk about. Today we talked about in-place algorithms for sorting, selection, merging, okay, where in your data you're allowed to do whatever you want, move them around, but I'm allowing you only small space. Now we will throw in one more restriction tomorrow, which is that you are not allowed to move your elements inside. So in some sense, your input is coming in read-only memory. Okay. So I want to do sorting. I want to find the median. I want to do graph algorithms. But my input is fixed. I can't touch my input, do anything with it. All I'm allowed to do is use some small amount of extra space what kind of algorithms can we do is the question. And Saket talked about streaming. That is yet another level of restriction on the input. We'll get to it later. But so we are slowly moving. Right now, what I talked about, your input is, you're allowed to do anything you want. Its whole input is available. You can access, random access. You want to restrict the space. Tomorrow we'll talk about, no. Every entire input is allowed, random access is allowed, but you can't move things around. You only are allowed to use small space. What can you do? How fast can you do sorting? How fast can you do find the median and all this things? So along the way, all we are doing is building up some tricks, some tools to eventually get to the most restricted kind of models we'll get to in the next couple of days, which is, not even entire data is allowed to you completely. You are allowed only some part of the data. What can you do? That's the kind of restrictions we'll eventually get to. But what I talked about is some partial restriction on the space, and there are some 2-3 problems in your tutorial related to what we talked about. Enjoy them, and I will stop here and we'll continue tomorrow.